Hi everyone, happy Sunday. So I am posting a color and chat today. We're going to be coloring out of Hello Country Spring by Joshua Dunbar for my color along this month, the alphabet color 2022 DE. Here are the markers I'm going to be using as a base, a variety of Copic, Weisbrandt. I mean, you can go back and pause it if you really want to look. Weisbrandt, Copic, and the Ohuhu pastel markers. I find that the pastel markers are working really well for when I want to go over with pastel pencil, for giving me that lighter tone I'm usually not very good at getting. Though with the bigger Derwent pastel pencil set, I can go a little bit darker like I am here with the background. Because I have more pencils, darker tones I can use. As always, if you like this video and want to see more, please like and subscribe. No pressure on that. It's just always helpful. It gets my videos out there more for people to see. Some people may not necessarily like my sense of humor or the way I do my videos, but that's okay. It's great that we have such a variety of types of videos and colorists out there on YouTube and in the coloring community. So, but you know, I still consider myself a relatively small channel. I certainly am not looking to turn this into a full-time gig. I don't feel like I have the talent level for that, and I do still have a day job, and I'm a very big advocate of don't try to monetize my hobbies, but you know, it's just always fun to find other people out there, especially people who've just started YouTube channels. Sometimes it's hard to find those. So if you are one of those people and maybe new to the channel, just leave a comment, and I will definitely go check you out. I actually found a few new to me channels today, so always trying to find new channels to subscribe to. But anyway, so as I said, this is going to be excuse me, this is going to be a marker base, and that's where I messed up. I started to color the fawn, though I'm using it as a deer for this picture. Colored a little bit of the fawn's leg there, but later on when I come back in, it's an easily fixed mistake, thank goodness. So I knew I wanted to color out of one of Joshua Dunbar's books this month because of the color along. Also because I spent a lot of time in Alexandra Franzise's books last month, and I love both their work, and I'm excited that they're both self-publishing, so I want to show his books some love as well this month. I really enjoy both of the different types of styles, and I'm finding that the marker and pastel combo is working so well for their pictures, and it gives me something that feels like it took a lot of time and effort when really it doesn't take that long at all. So I was also busy starting to refill my Copic markers yesterday, and this was one of the colors I had to refill, and I was originally going to make the background just like a light yellow, right? And then I saw this purple, and I'm like, man, this is just such a pretty, bright, springy purple. I was like, I just really want to make this the background. And so my husband said it's almost like the fawn is stepping out of like some, you know, Narnia portal or something. It gives a little bit of a, I guess, a fantasy element to it, if you will. So I like that as well. So we went with the purple. And So I hope everyone is doing well. I know I have been a little off my normal video schedule, and I haven't been posting mostly on Tuesdays or on the weekends. You've gotten a couple flip through Fridays, and that's been about it. If you aren't aware, I've just been trying to cut back a little this month. It's still just felt like it's been nonstop busy. Um, Work in particular is really is really becoming a thing right now. And I've been so burnt out lately. I really have pretty much been working and sleeping and staring in the space, and that's pretty much been it. So, in fact, I just got so wrung out. The spring. Any big weather changes wreak havoc on my fibro and just my body. The seasonal change and the pressure changes in the weather and stuff just seem to really cause a lot of issues for me. And that plus um, I've been trying to walk more, been trying to push myself a little bit with exercise, and that wasn't going so well. That, and then just work, and a couple weeks ago I finally just kind of had a moment. I had a moment where enough was enough. I needed a few days, or I wasn't gonna make it very much longer without just completely zapping out. And it didn't help that a couple weeks ago, and I think I mentioned this on my last coloring chat, I can't remember. I had a real weird week where I had some weird symptoms pop up. Like, I thought I had nerve damage or something happening. Like, the base of my neck would just go cold all of a sudden, or different spots of my body would go cold and numb. And I started feeling just really tired, really lightheaded. I was having to take a few days off, half days of work, because I felt so sick, and just my stomach was upset, and um, I was worried it was, like I said, something wrong with my nerves. And we thought it might be because I'm not taking my pregabalin anymore, which used to, pregabalin and gabapentin are originally anti-seizure medications, but they're also used to help manage nerve sensitivity in different autoimmune disorders, or if, it basically kind of dull your nerve endings a bit. And with things like fibro and stuff, it really comes in handy. Unfortunately, they caused a lot of problems with digestion, and just to the point where I had to go off of them. The cons outweighed the pros. So I'm going to stop here just for a minute and mention I'm going to try to do a little bit of marker blending on the fawn. When I was looking at pictures of them, I noticed, at the base of the head, or at the top of the head and top of the back and stuff, they have more of a reddish tint to them, and then it kind of goes from the darker reddish to a medium brown color, and then a real light color at the bottom of the fawn, and then into even some white. So I wanted to try some blending here. I haven't been doing that much lately, just because I've been really enjoying using the pastel pencils instead, and then just doing a solid base. Blending on Amazon paper is a bit of a chore as well, because it dries very quickly, and as you can see here, I did run into a little bit of an issue initially with the jawline on the deer. It turns out looking okay at the end, but you also have to be careful how many layers you put on, because then it starts getting like this weird kind of mottled look, which was okay overall, but I still feel like I get mad because it doesn't look like the way I want it, and I keep working at it, and then I can somehow make it worse. So I don't recommend, if you're worried about, using your markers as little as possible, and not minimizing how much ink you're using and how frayed the ends get and stuff like that. I don't recommend blending on Amazon paper. Um, and if you, it's hard for you to work fast, I wouldn't recommend it. I'm used to it because I've just been doing it for so many years, and so I don't. I can get a pretty good blend if I really work at it. So, but you have to work quickly just because the paper dries, and like I said, you can go back over it a couple times, but then it starts getting a little, and you'll see a little bit later in here what I'm talking about. It kind of gets a weird look about it when you use too many layers on this type of paper. So, but I was overall pleased with how it actually ended up looking, and especially with the pastel pencils over it. So, at the end of the day, I was happy I did this because I probably wouldn't have liked it as much overall. Anyway, so was having all these weird symptoms, and I figured it my because I'm off the pregabalin lyrica, basically is what the non-generic's called. I figured that was the problem, and my nerves are just like, oh, it's spring, oh, we're gonna just wreak havoc and cause all kinds of problems. I was really worried about like neuropathy and stuff because I just don't need any extra level of health turmoil in my life right now. But I went to the doctor. I had to go anyway for something different, and I did mention it because I was like, this is really weird. And she was concerned because it came on all of a sudden. This wasn't a gradual thing. It was like one day I was fine, and the next I wasn't. So we just went ahead and started out with some regular blood work, and come to find out my B12 was low. And nobody seems to really, it's weird that nobody really seems to have an explanation. Like my vitamin D is low I know because I don't go outside very much and I don't get natural vitamin D by sunlight. I am a pasty person who stays inside. I'm also overweight, and overweight people tend to have low vitamin D. I guess it's just how much they need to get to adequate levels is just a higher amount than at a normal weight. I can't remember the exact reason, but that sounds right in my head. Um, I really, by the way, liked right here where I did just a very light outline where the artist has put in some natural lines and some natural shading where I just lightly sketched the lightest color around those. I think that added just a real nice effect. I like that a lot. It was just one of those last minute decisions when I was putting this together, and I'm like, oh, hey, that actually looks pretty nice. So there you go. But yeah, they don't really know why my B12 was low, which if I had a nickel for every time somebody told me they don't know why, my body does what it does. I definitely wouldn't have to worry about my premium health insurance, nor my deductible probably. And so I have low B12. I have to get biweekly shots for 3 months, and then they're going to check it again. The thing that really got me about that, though, I was like, I just went and saw my rheumatologist and had blood work done. Blood work done at the start of March. And I'm like, how did she not pick this up? So I go look, and she tested everything in a basic blood work test except for my B12 for some odd reason. Like, she checked my red blood cell count, so why wouldn't you check, and my vitamin D levels and like my sodium and potassium and all that. So why wouldn't you also check B12? Especially if if your patient is constantly talking about fatigue and lightheadedness and dizziness and cold spots and things like that. Because when I looked up the symptoms for low B12, let me tell you, I checked all the boxes. I mean, why wouldn't that just be one of the basic things you would check? So I went back to July of last year when I saw my regular practitioner, and my B12 was right. It wasn't technically low, but I think 200 is the minimum threshold, and it was like 203. So it was technically, it was low, but it was just right in the threshold, so nobody said anything to me. So I guess it's just dipped just enough now below that I think it was at 185 or something this last time. So I'm gonna start going to get those, and ever since I went and got the first shot the next day, and after that I've had zero problems with the cold spots and all the weird symptoms I was having. Now fatigue, we all know I'm still tired. We all know I'm still. Um, I held no hope that extra B12 was going to give me extra energy. I held zero hope for that because everybody keeps telling me, oh, you do this and it'll give me more energy, and it never does. Never does. Because I my doctor refuses to diagnose me with this, but my the practitioner I did years ago, labeled me as ME, chronic fatigue, CFS, chronic fatigue syndrome. It's also called myalgic encephalitis or something like that. Um, it's man, that Golden Girls episode. Every time I say this, everybody's like, "Oh yeah, like that Golden Girls episode." And I'm like, exactly. And you know which one I'm talking about if you love Golden Girls, because that was one of my favorite episodes and still is. Because and it's unfortunate because how Dorothy is treated in that episode and by her doctor and people that just aren't taking her seriously. That she's genuinely sick. It's sad that that was recorded in what, like the early 90s, and here we are, what, 30 years later, and we're still, people that have it are still treated the same way. Like, it really hasn't, I mean, it's changed some in 30 years, but it really hasn't changed all that much. Neither has, treatment hasn't changed all that much either. Like, it's just still not taken seriously as a disease, and I think labeling it as a chronic fatigue syndrome was the worst idea, because then it just began this thing of, oh, you're just tired, and that's not it at all. But anyway, I have that, and I suffer from that. That is an energy production issue with your body. Your body only produces so many bars of energy, and it is very, very difficult to add energy bars to your system. Some people have luck with changes in diet. Some people, through very, very slow increases in exercise, can get a little more, but for the most part, you have a certain amount, and that's pretty much what you got, and it's better to pace yourself, which is already what I'm doing. So there's nothing in this world that they would probably do differently with me if I had somebody, say, yes, you have this. And I think more than anything, I just would feel validated. Like, it would just be like somebody finally is taking me seriously, because my rheumatologist evidently doesn't. And this was my last straw with a rheumatologist. Let me tell you, I have had issues with them for years, because they slapped me with a diagnosis, and I'm not disagreeing, it's the wrong one, but anything new that has popped up since then, they don't take seriously. When I had those heart palpitations, oh, you just have anxiety. When I'm tired all the time, oh, you're just depressed. And I'm sorry, yes, I have issues with anxiety. I do have issues with depression, but I know when it's normal depression, normal anxiety, and when it's something different. And like the heart palpitations thing, like she ignored me for almost a year. And then when I went to the heart doctor and come back, she's like, oh, well, it could be your medication causing it, which my cardiologist was like, if it was going to cause you issues, it would have already done it. So she didn't take it seriously, but it took, it took a year for her to be like, oh, wow, she's serious about this. So anyway, the B12 thing was kind of the last straw. I have found a well-reviewed rheumatologist in Nashville that takes my insurance. Hopefully he's taking new patients. I'm going to try to call and schedule. I basically just I want a new rheumatologist, because this guy seems to be above board, So he seems like I want somebody who's going to listen and take me seriously, because I'm just not getting it from my current rheumatologist. And this has not been the first nor the last time that they have made things so difficult for me. So, yeah, I just got to actually will myself to actually call and make the appointment for those of you who get anxious, and it takes me energy to make appointments. That should surprise nobody. So I'm hoping to do that this next week. And just the idea of having to drive all the way to Nashville for this is really, I mean, you're done pretty much taking a whole day off of work just for the time it'll take me to get there and get back. Um, but I don't have a choice because I don't have anybody else in this area other than this rheumatologist and his group, and I'm over them. I'm absolutely positively over them. This should have been something that was easily found, and yet wasn't. So anyway, so let that be. I guess I'm using that as an example of, even if you have chronic illness and you suddenly start developing weird symptoms, do not let anyone get you into thinking, oh, it's just your normal stuff. If you truly feel like something's different or something's weird, don't put it off. Go to the doctor and advocate for yourself and say, no, something is wrong. Something is not right. I could have just assumed that was neuropathy and just been like, okay, well, this is just something I'm going to have to deal with. And how much longer would I have dealt with that before going and getting just some routine blood work done? So, and I say that in that I am privileged and lucky to be able to afford a doctor's visit. I say all that to say, if you can financially do it, and it is ridiculous I have to say that. That shouldn't be a thing. If you are sick and you need to see somebody, then you should be able to go and see them and not have to worry about, well, now I can't afford groceries this month. So I say that in that, realizing not everybody has the ability to do that financially, or if you even have a doctor in your area that takes you seriously. Not everybody's lucky enough to have that, and it's ridiculous I even have to say that. So, but I do realize I am, at the end of the day, even with the struggles I have, I still am in a better position than most are that I know that deal with this stuff. I am still able to work a limited amount, and though if I had to go in, I could not go into an office. I've especially realized that lately. I do okay as long as I sleep well. I do okay the first half of the day. But the second half of the day, I'm usually on the couch and my energy level's gone. The idea of having to sit in an office 8 hours a day, I don't physically think I could do that anymore. So I do realize that I can still at least work in a limited way, and I'm lucky in that and everything. So just my goal at this point is to keep myself able to do that for as long as possible. And my current doctor, my general practice doctor's fine, but my current rheumatologist is not listening to me, and I also feel like there's things she's missing, and so I kind of just need to get a second opinion. I'm lucky I can go get a second opinion. So if you can go have that done, please do. But I also realize and am just so pissed about it that not everybody can, and I just America's got to get together with our healthcare system, because this is unsustainable. Nobody, well, everybody who uses it is acknowledging it, but the people that can change it are not wanting to acknowledge this is not sustainable for so many reasons. And and it's just going to get worse. I still wear masks everywhere I go. I still limit where I go. Though I do go visit, my parents and stuff, at least now. But anywhere I go, I'm wearing an N95 mask. I upgraded my masks. I limit where I go. If it's going to be a dentist office where nobody's masked, I'm not going in there, and I'm not having any work done. Um, I have not even went to get my hair cut in a long time just because I don't want to be in a small stylist salon with, there's usually, a ton of people in a little small country salon. There's usually a ton of people wedged in there, and there's nobody around here that's wearing masks. And at the end of the day, I'm not gonna argue with anybody. You want to leave a comment about it, I'm gonna delete it. I'm not gonna argue with anybody about it, because look, I know what it's like to be stuck with chronic illness. I know what it's like to live your life and having to pick and choose what you can and can't do based on your energy levels, based on your pain levels. Every single day, it's a battle. And I know that if I wind up with COVID, I'm going to probably more than likely wind up with long COVID. I have too many risk factors already with the current illnesses that I have. The fact that my illnesses were basically the result of a viral infection. I know I would wind up with long COVID. I would wind up with complications. And I'm telling y'all right now, and this is the only time I'm gonna say this, because if you're not getting it by now, you don't want to get it. But there is way too much increased chance. It is not just a respiratory disease. It is a cardiovascular disease. It affects all your organs. You could wind up with issues with your kidneys, with your heart, with your brain. There's brain damage from COVID, even mild COVID infections for a certain percentage of people. You could develop long COVID, which they are finding is very similar in symptoms to ME/CFS. So if you have chronic fatigue syndrome, and somebody with long COVID, you may have very similar symptoms. And I've been there. I know what it's like to have to live with a debilitating illness. And like I said, I am way more fortunate than a lot of people that suffer with this, because so many are disabled and can't even work. They're disabled, or they can't get this. They can't qualify for disability because nobody takes them seriously. Again, another system that needs to be overhauled in this country. I'm on a rant today, y'all. I'm just all kinds of flailed up here. It just drives me crazy. I know what it's like to live life like that, and I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. And there is no way in heck that I am going to go take a risk of even catching COVID once. Because the more you catch it, the more likely you're going to have complications from it. And like I said, it increases your chance of a stroke. It increases your chance of long COVID, which is, again, fatigue. For some people, it's even having trouble getting enough oxygen to do anything. It's, oh gosh, I'm blanking out here. They're seeing signs of brain damage in people with it. Microclots. I mean, it's scary stuff. And everybody's acting like it's gone. It's not gone, y'all. It's not gone. And if you want it to be gone, I understand. I understand people don't want it to be here, and they don't want to listen because it scares them to think that a good, significant portion of our population might wind up disabled in the next 5 to 10 years because of this. because we don't know what the long-term implications of this are. Imagine, we already have such so many people that suffer from things like fibro and autoimmune disorders and chronic fatigue and and all these complicated issues like heart issues, all this other stuff. Now imagine that percentage of the population, that many millions of people doubled or even tripled in the next 5 years, what that's going to mean for our economy, for their ability to our healthcare system and everything. And it's not going to end well. It's not going to end well. Anyway, I know what it's like. I don't need any more complications in my health. And so until I have a better option, this is just how it's going to be. So, anyway, that is my rant. That is my moment to sit here, and yes, I'm going against the grain. Y'all should know how I am. If you don't like what I'm saying, sorry. Well, I'm not sorry. It just we don't want to deal with the reality of it, and it just upsets me. Just like everything else that we need to fix, and that is a current crisis, we want to pretend it's not there, and we hope it just goes away on its own, and it's not going to. So that is my rant on that. You won't really hear me talk about COVID anymore, because I figure at this point, if you're just pretending it's over with and don't want to hear it anymore, then there's nothing I can say or do. You're just going to have to experience it on your own to really understand. But I think those of us who are already ill, who are already disabled and struggle, are all the more cautious, because we know what it's like. We know what it's like to live with these kinds of issues, and it is. I don't want it for anyone. I wish just anyway. Okay, enough of that. I was on a health rant today, let me tell you. And speaking of which, I mentioned Friday, my husband's grandmother passed away on Thursday or Friday. It wasn't a COVID, as far as I know. I think it was just, she's had health issues for a number of years. She's like 87. She was 87. They actually thought she was pretty much, she only had months to live about 3 years ago, and she's made it this long. So she was a she's a stubborn bird, let me tell you. Her husband was a home health nurse, and then a neighbor was helping take care of her up until the past week or two, where it just got to the point she was having so many issues they figured it wouldn't be long. They put her in, they placed her in a palliative hospice care facility. My husband was able to go see her last weekend, though she wasn't conscious for very long, and she was kind of out of it. Yeah, that's another discussion. That's another, boy, I really want to talk about this thing, but we've had enough controversy for the day. I typically don't do controversial topics on here, but health has been a huge thing in my world here lately, and it's something I felt like I needed to say, because it's driving me crazy to see people saying otherwise. But she passed. I mean, they expected she was going to pass away soon, and she passed away Thursday. Her funeral is tomorrow, and so we're going to go to that, but we're going to be masked and just be as cautious as we can. I mean, at the end of the day, things like this, I'm going to make an exception for, but I'm also going to be as careful as I can about it, and just try to limit interactions with people where I can, go outside in the open air as much as I can to take breaks, limit what I eat and drink around other people where I have to take my mask off and things like that. So, but my my husband's not a very emotional person. He's been very lucky because he's my age. I mean, we're both 40, and all four of his grandparents made it to 85 or older. And he had a grandfather pass away a few years back, and then now his grandmother on the other side has passed away. And so he's been very fortunate to have his grandparents, around for a lot longer than a lot of us do. I think both my dad's parents were gone. I never knew my grandfather on my dad's side, but my grandmother on that side passed away, I think, a year after my brother was born, and I didn't know her very well. I was very close to the grandparents on my mom's side, and my grandmother passed away when I was 18, and that was really tough because she was only 57. That was due to cancer, and then my grandfather made it about another 10 years, but for him, my grandmother was his world. So he. I'll move the page up here in a minute. By the way, did he was around those 10 years, but did he really live? That's one of those things. Um, but I think Brent's grandparents, if I'm not mistaken, when I looked at the obituary, had been married 68 years, y'all. Like, that was amazing. I feel so sorry for his grandfather. I know what it was like for my grandfather, and I mean, I don't think longevity does anything but make the heart grow fonder in certain relationships. And so I know how tore up my grandfather was. So I can't even imagine what it's like for his grandfather. But my husband's not super emotional kind of guy, but this set of grandparents, he was around, I think, a lot more growing up, and so I know it's still tough on him. He went to work on arrangements and plans today. His brother and his wife flew in yesterday, and so I opted not to go today, so that I could stay home and he could stay as long as he needs. With the cats and their health issues, we have to be a little careful of. I have to make sure, one of us is home at certain times just to make sure they get their medication and everything. So I figured I could stay today. Tomorrow will be the day that I go, because that'll be the day he probably needs me. So, but yeah, so he definitely has some longevity in his family, which is wonderful. um, Other than his grandparents, though, he didn't really seem to have, like, both his parents were single kids, so he didn't really have any aunts or uncles, and his extended family he just doesn't really talk to that much. So um, should be it'll be a day, that's for sure. Um, but that happened, and that's going on tomorrow. I had mentioned I told my boss a lot of the people on my team had taken a week of vacation for, like, spring break and stuff, and I hadn't taken any time off, and I just told her, I said, I need a few days. Work has been really tough the last 2 or 3 months. Just there's been multiple projects, and as soon as one project gets done, another one's taking priority, but we're still having to manage the current project, and it's just after I just needed some rest, and so I took not an entire week off, but just a few days, because I will be taking time off in June. I just knew I wasn't going to make it to June if I didn't have some days to kind of regroup a little bit, And yes, I could have used longer, but I didn't really do much. I pretty much just rested on the couch the entire time. I played some computer games. There's this one on Steam called Big Farm Story, which is like a 3D kind of Stardew Valley thing, and it's really cute. It's not an intensive, difficult game, um, but I like it because it's just one where you collect stuff and you have little quests and things like that. And I think I've just about played it out. I've got just a few achievements left to get, and it's unusual I stick with the game for that long. So I guess I'll have to find something else. But I just pretty much stayed on the couch and rested. I didn't even walk much. I was trying to walk and trying to at least do have a little bit of movement there for a couple weeks, and then it got real cold and rainy one week, and we didn't feel like walking at all. And then that's when I started having all those symptoms, and I was worried I was making it worse by walking. And so I backed off for about a week, and yeah, just didn't accomplish much. But I'm really just trying to get to the point of not beating myself up for um, not being uh, not beating myself up for being having to rest and stuff like that. Like, I mean, I've been dealing with this since 2014, the summer of 2014, and I still am not. It's still taking me time to. It's still a fight for me to realize that I only have so much energy and I need to rest, and I cannot push myself too hard. I've made a lot of advances, especially in the last 2 or 3 years, but it's still not an easy thing for me to accept. And so went back to work on Thursday and then we got that call. I'm gonna actually have to take off tomorrow as well. We'll have to do some work this weekend though, since I will be out tomorrow. There's some critical projects I have to make sure advance while I'm out tomorrow. So, yeah. So took a break. Didn't really feel like I'd had much of a break. So, um, but it'll have to be enough. So getting back to the picture, we're getting pretty close to the end. With the pastels, I still struggle between, I like the look of a real dark color over the color as shading, but I also kind of like the subtle look. So for instance, that purple background, I used pretty much the same type of color to create just a very light shaded edging to it. You can see it, but it's very subtle. I could have went with a darker purple, but I chose not to because I like the look of the subtle shading. But then with these roses, I was like, no, the color I'm using is too close to the original color, so I come in here with, I think it's a dark gray, to create the shading that I want, and that gave me a little more depth. So I still am not real sure what I prefer. I like the look of more depth to it, but I also like subtle shading. So this whole picture is kind of a mix of both. I haven't decided if I have a particular technique or something that I like. I'm also learning that in real small spaces, I'm better off just kind of coloring in with the pastels and outline instead of actually shading it with a Q-tip, because then it loses any depth that I created just because it's such a small space. I ran into that with the bluebird, so I had to leave it as more of a obvious line rather than trying to blend it like I do in bigger spaces. So still learning how to use these. I still think overall this is probably one of my favorite ways to color now. It goes so much faster when you're just using like a one color pastel pencil. to create the depth and shading. It gives me some texture, some depth without having to use 2 or 3 colored pencils. Being able to go over it with a Q-tip allows it to look more like a natural shading rather than kind of the scratchy look, not scratchy, but the textured look you can get with pencils on Amazon paper. Um, these pastel pencils, though, I still like them. I still like the Derwent pencils, but I'm a little irritated at the set I got. So I had mentioned when I originally got them that about 3 to 4 of the pencils were really scratchy. Like, it was hard to get any color to come off onto the paper, much less me being able to smudge it out like I can a regular pastel pencil. And so I ordered those separately as one, refills of sorts, and got those. There was one color, it was still scratchy, and I got those from Dick Blick, so I can order them from a completely different source than the Amazon set I got. And the raspberry was still the same way. So I think it's the formula of that particular pencil. I'm probably never going to use that pencil just because it's I can't even get it to really put any color on the paper. So I was a little frustrated at that. Then also, some of the pencils are broken. When I go to sharpen them, I'm having to sharpen them so much just to get a good point on them. And I like having a point on them because of the way I use them in these small spaces. I wouldn't mind them being dull in bigger spaces, but they work so much better in these little tiny spaces if they are sharpened. And so I'm losing so much pencil on some of these trying to get them past all the brokenness. So in terms of just what replacements I'm going to have to get and stuff so quickly, I'm a little frustrated at that, just because I feel like for what I paid for this set, they should be in better shape overall. The scratchiness of the formula of some of the pencils being off wasn't as big a deal as having to sharpen them and lose so much pencil because they're broken. That's bothered me more than anything. So, but overall, I still think I will be using my pastel pencils far more than I will be my colored pencils, which is not good because I have a lot of colored pencils. So I don't know what that means in the future. I don't know if it means maybe I'm just gonna give up some sets eventually, resell them, or give away. I don't know, but for right now I'm just holding on to everything because the thing with pencils is that they're going to be around. They can be around for years. I am in no rush, and that's been the biggest thing with coloring. Has been I've been down on myself because I've been buying all these books and supplies, and there for the first half of this month I didn't really color, but then last week I had to sit there and tell myself, Michelle, with the exception of the markers, and you're not buying any new markers at this point, you're just using what you have, with the exception of the markers and possibly the gel pens, everything else isn't going anywhere. It's right there when you're ready to use it. So if I don't feel like coloring, then so be it. It's fine. It's not going to go anywhere. So I need to stop putting pressure on myself to do that. And man, I talked about a lot of things. Hadn't even had a chance to get to yet. Cats are doing well. Bagheera's acting a little strange. He is still yowling a lot, which is unusual for him. He's also, for some reason, hanging out in the bathroom floor, just on the. We have a carpeted bathroom. It's gross. We are going to replace it hopefully later this year. It was just one of those things that had to be. It had to be redone when I moved in, and we just haven't had a chance to fix it yet. He'll lay on that, and instead of laying in the bed, and it's just neither one of those sound like a major issue, right? But because he already takes thyroid meds, usually yowling's a side of thyroid issues if it's not just behavioral. So I need to go and make sure that his thyroid's okay anyway. Leroy needs to go get his annual, plus he is having litter box grossness. I've managed to get it a little better with probiotics that he was taking there for a while and then didn't need anymore. But I just need to take him anyway and get all that rolled out. As for the picture right here, you know, I wanted to go ahead and outline the spots on his back, and then I was kind of like, man, that's a lot darker than the rest of the fawn. So and I hear I'm just trying. I'm like, do I want to do this? Do I not want to do this? Is it going to make it worse? Here I come in trying to erase around the lines, seeing if I can darken them up, which helped a little, but it still looked way too different. I eventually come in here, I outline the deer, the bluebird, and the butterfly. I figured we'll outline those to kind of emphasize they're in the foreground and like everything else is kind of in the background. I was worried I would go down this path. Every time I do, I love how it looks. Though my hand is super shaky, I still can't get past that for some reason. I love how it looks, but what my problem is once I start doing it is where to stop, or else I just outline the entire darn picture. I didn't really want to do that, so I just stuck with the animals in the picture, and once it's done, I was very pleased. I was glad I did this. So sometimes you just got to be courageous, and you just got to try something just to see, and it was turning out such a nice picture, and I was like, I don't want to ruin it, but I was glad I did it. I figured if it looked weird enough, I could just outline the entire picture and it would be fine, and I didn't have to worry about that. So like I said, sometimes it's fun just to challenge yourself a little bit, and this was, I'm using a Faber-Castell Pit Pen, by the way. It's one of my favorite things to use when I'm doing this outline, and it does create a darker line. Probably what I should have done to start with, if I didn't want to do this, I think it turned out for the better for the picture, honestly. But had I thought about it beforehand, I might have just used a micron. I can't remember the size. Hang on, it's right here. Micron 03, 0.35 millimeter is about the regular line thickness of the lines in the Jade Summer books. Just FYI, at least that's what I found. When I needed to add lines in, that's what I use because it's the closest I can get. But this will, of course, give you a thicker line, which looked just really luscious to me. I like it. I just wish my hand was steadier. I was very shaky. I can't. It drives me crazy. I just can't be calm when I do this stuff. But anyway, so Winry needs to go get her kidneys checked, though she's been doing really well. Everybody's been doing really well, just like Scamper, Leroy need to go get their annuals. I just want to make sure Bagheera's okay and nothing weird has come up with him. He just had his senior wellness in November, and even his kidneys looked great, so not too worried about that. But I just want to be sure. Again, I'm lucky and fortunate enough that I can do that. So I don't want to come under any surprises here, especially if in a couple months I'm going to Philadelphia. I want to make sure they are in as good a shape as possible before I go anywhere. And yeah, I mentioned Friday I have been going crazy with bird feeders and squirrel feeders in the yard. Figuring out the squirrels they need more than just like sunflower seeds, which is all the squirrels seem to eat in my yard. So I got them some like little dried fruit and nut food that they seem to be doing well with. I might get some peanuts just to add in as treats. That's not supposed to be like their main part of their diet. All the animals get treated well at my house, not just the cats. But I enjoy watching them as much as the cats do, so that's been fun. Uh, oh, and here we are. I think, yeah. So I went in. What did I do? Oh, right. At one point, I should have said this. I went in with a darker marker on those flowers and at the top to give a little difference between the different color pinks. I didn't show where I outlined the butterfly, but I did that as well. You can see it's a little darker. And here's the finished picture. I was thrilled with how this one turned out. My husband really liked it too. It's just, like I said, if I could just figure out which, sometimes I want subtle with the pastel, sometimes I want more depth. And if I could just figure out what I want with the pastel pencils, I feel like it would probably look a little better. But overall, I was really pleased with this one. I was pleased with the blending of the marker. I feel like that turned out well. You can see on the face, it's a little, I call it mottled, but it looks, just when you use multiple layers of marker on Amazon paper, you can kind of get that just where it looks like it's wet and kind of just different colors, different shades here and there. But I with the pastel pencil and stuff, it's fine. I'm not too worried about it. I was so glad to be able to color in one of his books, and this is a gorgeous book. I was like, I really should color an Easter page for Easter, and so I was looking at all the Easter pages, but I kept coming back to this one because I just loved it. I love all the pictures in here, but this one in particular was just really calling my name Saturday morning, and so here we are. Hopefully I did it justice. I will be posting this on Instagram later tonight. My husband snuck my phone today because he doesn't have his own. Long story there. We both work from home. He doesn't want the added expense of a second cell phone. So I'll probably post this to Instagram later tonight. I probably won't post another video till Friday, unless I am feeling scampy Tuesday and want to do. I have gotten some watercolors from Deborah Muller on her Etsy page. I also got some watercolor samples from Renaissance Colors that I kind of want to try. We might play around with, if I get a Wild Hair Tuesday, we might play around with those or something. We'll see. But if not, I will be back on Friday with some more new books, of course. And then next weekend, we'll probably do the book and supply haul for the month, because we're getting close to the end of the month, aren't we? Yeah, usually I do the coloring and supply haul the weekend before the end of the month, and then the 29th will be, well, see, I don't know if I'll have enough pages to do a completed pages this month. So we'll either do a coloring supply next weekend, or we'll do it on like the 29th or something. We'll see. Hopefully May, I'll be able to get back to doing some demos. May still be a little wonky because it's my husband's birthday, my birthday, it's our anniversary month, it's my dad's birthday. I just said, 4 appointments to schedule for the cats. I'll have possibly at least 1 to 2 appointments for myself. So May very well be a very busy month, but hopefully I can be a little more frequent than I did this month. And yeah, we'll just keep on keeping on. I hope everybody's doing well. I do apologize if you, I know there's people that's messaged me, and I know my friends get it. I know you guys get it, that, sometimes it takes a while for me to respond. And I appreciate all the support. I appreciate the understanding. It's just, yeah, mentally I feel like I've been struggling with a lot lately, and physically I'm just not feeling up to doing, I don't know. I miss how I felt like in January, where I actually had a lot of creativity going. I miss that mindset I had kind of back then, where things were a little calmer and the world wasn't burning quite so badly. Oh no, it was burning, but it wasn't as bad as it is now. Anyway, I'm sorry. Okay. I hope you guys have had a wonderful Easter weekend, whether you celebrate or not. And I'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.